Welcome to Adulting on the Spectrum. In this podcast, we want to highlight the real voices of autistic adults, not just inspirational stories, but people like us talking about their day-to-day life. Basically, we want to give a voice to a variety of autistic people. I'm Eileen Lamb, an autistic author and photographer, and I co-host this podcast with Andrew Komarow. Hey, Andrew.
Hey, Eileen. I'm Andrew Komarow, autistic entrepreneur, founder of the Neurodiversity Index. Today, our guest is Alex Astrella, AA, Eileen's favorite acronym for short. And then Alex is a special educator and filmmaker from Dana Point, California. Through his work in both fields, he is passionate about giving back to the community that helped him become the individual he is today. Outside of his work, Alex enjoys spending time with his family and friends. He is always striving to learn and grow each and every day. Welcome, Alex.
Thank you for having me.
So we like to start off our podcast. We ask each guest how they'd like to be identified. And we don't mean pronouns, although you're welcome to share those as well. We mean person with autism, on the spectrum, autistic, I don't give a shit, is probably our most common answer. I don't think we've gone through and pulled them. I don't think that's verbatim, but I think it's no preferences probably.
I don't care. Also, is it okay to swear on this podcast, or is it like
Yes, it's
okay?
adulting on the spectrum.
Okay, yeah, I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit what people call me, like, but yeah, like whatever people want to call me, like, I'm pretty thick-skinned and like we're all human at the end of the day, so I don't really have a preference.
Awesome. So, Alex, we like to also ask our guests when they were diagnosed and if, what the process was like. You were diagnosed very young. You were 2, I believe. So I assume you don't remember much about your assessment, but what do you know about your diagnosis, and when did you learn about it from your parents and all of that?
Yeah, so I was 2 years old when I was diagnosed, up in LA. I mean, obviously I don't remember this, but specifically my mom has kind of relayed like what that process was like. And the basically the neurologist who diagnosed me at the time said that, he's high functioning, Alex is high functioning, but he really won't be able to make friends in school and probably won't get past like high school education. And that really just kind of threw both my parents for a whirlwind. And so right away from that diagnosis, they enrolled me in ABA services here in Orange County, California. And so from ages 2 to 7, I had pretty intense like ABA therapy. And in hindsight, and at the time, my mom, made me believe I was 5 years old, 4 years old, whatever. So at the time, I just thought it was like babysitters that were, coming over to like play with me, and because that's what it felt like at the time. But in reality, they were like keeping track of data and working on, goals to strengthen my motor skills, my social skills, basic, quality of life skills. And I feel like that had a tremendous impact on me. I didn't really realize it until later in life, not even until about like, early adulthood, like as I turned 20, and, while I was getting my undergrad, that how pivotal, that ABA experience had on me. And so I'm super grateful for all the therapists who I can't really remember, but all the ones who worked with me, and especially my parents for enrolling me in that. And and to bring it back full circle, I think it was because of those services that I was able to get my undergraduate in 2 majors at UC Santa Barbara, and then I just graduated with my master's in special education at Vanderbilt in Nashville. So yeah, just and that's kind of like my whole thing is just defying the odds, defying the limits, and overcoming, because I think if you set your mind to it and you have the right supports around you, it's anything like that is possible.
Now, question for you. If your parents had never told you that you were autistic, and let's go with that you never found out, would you always think that you had babysitters? Like looking back, like, I mean, now that you've gone to school for special education, You know, you're working to be an RBT or a BCBA. Do you like it? Could you really tell the difference, or like do you think you were being tortured, or do you think they were playing with you and trying to help you?
I feel like there's definitely like there's definitely like a few negative experiences, but they were very like few and far between. I feel like for the most part, um, it was positive. And again, I was so young, so it's hard to recall
Sure.
what exactly, I knew we did a lot of arts and crafts and like, trying new foods and doing stuff out in the community, but in turn, I was very young, so it's hard to pinpoint exactly like what I was doing. But I think even if my parents didn't tell me, I would have always I feel like I've always, I'm still really into trains, and I was even more so into trains when I was younger and would like, in public kind of like stim, I like rub my hands and like jump up and down. So I feel like I probably would have eventually been like, hey, not nobody else is really doing that. So I probably would have like figured it out, and I'm sure they would have told me, if I asked. But um I always felt, but then that's the thing, I guess, and that might be another, but it's kind of going into somewhere else. But basically, it's like, I when I realized like I was a little off at first, it kind of like bothered me, and I kind of like was afraid of that. But now it's like I'm embracing it, embracing, like I think I said in the interview, it's like there's no such thing as normal, and because maybe I'm more into trains or like I stim in private, whatever, like doesn't make me any lesser of a human. It's just makes me who I am, and I'm, proud to again, I'm proud to identify as being a person with autism or um, you know, autistic human these days.
When did you come out as being autistic, and why?
So yeah, I very recently, like I would tell like my I started telling like close friends, and I mean my extended family has known since I was a kid. They were, my mom kind of went to them for support when I was first diagnosed, but I started telling like my close friends and kind of inner circle, if you will, just within the last couple of years. And then it was just about, I don't know, a little over a month ago that I made an Instagram post. It was right when I graduated Vanderbilt with my master's in special education. I knew I kind of wanted to um, make it public at some point. I was like, oh, this feels right. Like, I wanted to post about my graduation anyways. So I was like, it just feels like it's kind of come full circle that I was receiving, ABA services, special ed services. Now I'm graduating with a master's in it. So I feel like what better time to like, share my story than now. And yeah, it was a really positive reception from I didn't really know. I knew I wanted to do it, and honestly like didn't give too much of a shit about like what the reaction was. I hope it was positive, it was going to be positive, and it was like overwhelmingly positive. So I was like super thankful for am thankful for all my friends and people, even people I don't know that well, who like commented or messaged me individually saying like how, they were so stoked that I like was able to be public about it. And yeah, so it's very recent, and it's still kind of weird being open about it. Not like, but it's just like, because I haven't talked about it to so many people for so long. I've been private about it, so just kind of talking about it openly is still kind of a new concept. But it's nice because I don't feel like I'm holding anything back. It's again, it's part of who I am, and I'm proud of it. So, yeah.
Was there any negative comments about you being a BCBA? Well, you're not a BCBA yet, but about studying to be a BCBA and being in the ABA field as an autistic person, because ABA is controversial. I think you are our first guest who has received ABA and then also decided to go into the field. What do you think about all the controversy around ABA?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely don't think it's for everybody, even though, yeah, I'm studying to become a BCBA, and ABA benefited me positively as a child. I don't think it's for everyone. I think you know, there's like other options. There's like play therapy. There's, you know, the documentary I'm doing, people are finding therapy through acting and being in theater. Um, I think, you know, it's kind of, I kind of feel like it's kind of similar to, you know, how do you want to be identified with as a person with autism? It's kind of like um, how do you want to go about, you know, therapy as a person with autism? Do you want to do the ABA route? Do you want to do something more unconventional like play therapy or like sense, you know, music therapy or mindfulness? Um, I think, and obviously, you know, when you're a kid, you can't make that decision if you're like 2 or 3 years old. But I think, you know, it's cool that like we're getting to a space where like parents are having more options about how they want to proceed. And, you know, maybe maybe people will try ABA therapy for a year or less and don't. I know families who have tried ABA and just don't really vibe with it, don't like the structure and the DTT and stuff. And I think I totally get that. You know, everyone has their own perspective and preferences and needs. So it may be something for the you know, music therapy might be more beneficial for a kiddo than traditional ABA and a clinic, and that's totally fine. Again, for me, ABA was really positive, and OT. You know, I also received OT services as well, and that's what I'm trained in, and I know how to do well. And I'm gonna, you know, bring that passion to my work and stuff. But I know it's not for everybody. And you know, through some of my classes at Vanderbilt, we talked about, you know, the obviously we're all trying to, you know, training to become BCBAs. So we have a biased perspective, but you know, trying to keep an open mind, like, hey, it's not for everybody. And if people don't vibe with it, then that's totally fine. There's other options out there as well that are hopefully, you know, just as beneficial to their child. So yeah, that's my perspective on it.
Well, and also I think not only there are other options, but you can also speak up. So for context, my two sons are on the spectrum. Both have had ABA therapy. One of them is high functioning, and the other is very severe, like nonverbal. He's 10 years old. You know, self-injurious behaviors, pica, elopement. I mean, all of it. And he's been in ABA for 8 years now, since he was 2. And I don't know what I would have done without ABA. It's you know, he's still like behind, obviously. His autism is severe, but they've taught him so much, you know, like AAC is really the main thing, self-care skills. But there were a couple times when I didn't like what they were doing, like they prevented Charlie, is his name, from lining up his food before eating it. And, you know, he's a picky eater. And I was like, you know what? As long as he eats it, just let him, you know? And I said something and they didn't prevent that anymore. So I also think that, you know, it's not just that parents can find something else. Like you can speak up and change ABA to what you like, you know? Sometimes it's just a small change. And yeah, maybe for some people, the entire therapy is not a right fit, but I think that often little adjustments to the therapy would be enough to make your parents comfortable with ABA.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think that's something we learned through my education at Vanderbilt is, you know, as traditional ABA kind of like more structured and like, oh, you can't line stuff up, or you have to make eye contact, or you have to use manners like please and thank you, and then we're like, you know, as the field's getting more advanced and you know wider, and we're learning more, it's like, you know, the pick your battles. Like, is that really, you know, it's like, are you going to focus on something like eye contact, whereas you could focus on like finding an alternative behavior to like, you know, like SIB or something? Um, yeah, I just think, I think and I think in general, you know, parents would probably prefer that too. It's like, there's, you know, you just got to pick your battles, I think. And we're learning as, you know, the field, again, as the field gets more advanced, that there's really, you know, eye contact and manners will just kind of come. And if they don't, that's fine. It's not, you know, really detrimental to, it's not, or yeah, like lining stuff up. that's not like a behavior that's like going to be a long lasting, like detrimental, have a long lasting detrimental impact. So yeah, I think it's cool that, you know, it's like we're like, okay, let's focus on like the real, you know, the what really matters instead of like this kind of, you know, bullshit like eye contact or manners or yeah, holding the door open, whatnot. So
Mhm.
yeah.
So when you're going to school or studying to be a BCBA, if you could talk a bit like, do they teach that? Um, you know, what do they teach? And but also like if you could talk a little bit more about, I mean, it's not that easy to get a license to start torturing little kids, right? You have to sarcasm. Sorry. But no, no, in all seriousness, it's a lot of work and it's a hard exam. You need lots of experience hours and training, and it's not something that is done, you know, just lightly or easily, right? While something like I assume like other, you know, I think Eileen would say like non-science based therapies can be done by anyone, right? You know, this is done by somebody who has many hours of experience learning under somebody and master's degree. Although I think the master's degree can be in anything now. I think they changed that as long as you can pass the test. So maybe I'll become one, Eileen. I'll go take my VCBA test with my master's in finance. Um, but anyway, so yeah, if you could tell us just a little bit more about like the process of becoming an RBT, like what you're studying, like what you're learning, and just like more. I mean, maybe there's others who want to help, but I don't think we've really had someone really talk about that before. Have we, Eileen?
I don't think so. No.
Yeah, so being an RBT, so just to give a little context, like when I graduated from my undergrad at UC Santa Barbara, I was initially going to go into film, but you know, prices in Los Angeles were really expensive, and so I moved back home. And my mom, I was looking for a job, and my mom was like, you know, since you're becoming more comfortable in your own skin, being, you know, an adult with autism, why don't you try to find, you know, a job as like a behavior technician? And so I gave it a shot, got the job, and I did that for 2 years prior to starting my master's at Vanderbilt, and I just loved it. I mean, I think an important thing that I learned in the field, and then we also emphasized in my classrooms at Vanderbilt, excuse me, is you know, just building a rapport not only with the child but also with the family, because if there, you know, if there's not that level of trust, then it's really hard to you know, carry out goals, to get the participation of not only the child but the family. Because if you think about it, you know, as a behavior technician or a BCBA, you're only at the clinic, you're or at the home for 2 or 3 hours with a kid, and you know, afterwards they're spending a majority of their time like at school, or mostly, you know, majority of the time with their parents at home. So if you don't have that, like, you know, what we call buy-in from like the parents or the guardians, then a lot of those goals just kind of go to waste. They go by the wayside, right? It's like they're not, if you don't have that trust, they're going to be like, oh, fuck that shit. I'm not going to, you know, like they can work on that while they're here, but I'm not going to do it on my own time, you know. But when you do have that buy-in and you do have that trust, which again, I think establishing a rapport, finding those commonalities, if there's like, if you're dealing with different cultures or different, you know, religions, whatnot, you know, kind of like being mindful of that and catering to those needs, that can go a really long way in them being willing and attempting to implement some of those, you know, ABA strategies on their own time, you know, while we're not there with them, while they have a bulk of the time with their child. And I think that's what I really tried to emphasize myself when I was a behavior technician. Well, again, when I go back into the field, because I think, you know, those leads to the best outcomes, and it leads to a more just overall leads to a more positive environment, you know, when they're happy to see you and you're happy to see them, and you know, like with the kiddos as well. um I think it makes just like the world of a difference, and I find in those instances as well, when you have that buy-in from the family, and the child, that, you know, it makes those breakthrough moments, like as I like to call them, when it's like they're able, when you're working on a training sequence and they're able to like brush their teeth for the first time independently, or they're able to tie their shoes independently for the first time, like it makes those breakthrough moments so much more like rewarding, because it's not just like, oh cool, it's like, whoa my god, we've been working on this for so long, and the family's stoked, and I'm stoked, and the kid is stoked, and that's just, yeah, it's just such a rewarding, I think it's so important to establish that rapport and establish that trust, because it makes the job more fulfilling. It makes like reaching those goals more fulfilling, and I think one of the most important things for me is, by being passionate about it and passionate about each kid I work with, and tailoring you know um, their individual strengths and needs. It just takes me out of my own head. It takes me out of my own day-to-day issues, or depressions or whatnot. It makes me focus on the here and now, and what I can do to better improve the life of this child that I'm working with. So, yeah.
So what would you do if you were not an RBT? You mentioned that you are into filmmaking. Is that correct?
Right, right. Yeah. If I wasn't an RBT, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say. Like, I'm kind of in the mindset that everything happens for a reason. I think it was like meant to be that I didn't go to LA, that I didn't go straight from graduating at UC Santa Barbara and going into film and having this job. Because yeah, it changed my life. Like, it's taught me about patience. It's taught me how to like want to act in service to the community that helped me out when I was a child. Um, it's hard to say. It's really hard to say. I don't know if what it would have looked like. But I'm just grateful. I know what did happen, and I know I'm super grateful for it. Um, and yeah, I don't think I would have the same level of comfort. I wouldn't be here talking about it as openly as I am now, I think, if I hadn't have taken that position as an RBT and met the kids and met the families I did, who even though I haven't worked with them for over 2 years, have had like a profound impact in my life, and I'm very grateful for that.
Eh, If you had to pick one, do you have, are they both, let's say, special interests? Do you have like, is one because you never think you'll be able to make a living in film, so it's kind of like you need a real job, or are they both equally passionate for you? And could you tell us more about Blue Star Productions?
Yeah, so they actually are like equally as passionate for me. Blue Star Productions, my production company, I started a little under a year ago. The goal is to empower filmmakers with disabilities, and whether that be their, documentary filmmakers, or, you know, uh, narrative filmmakers, or music video creators. We just want to create a safe space where are able to collaborate with each other, where they're able to feel safe and not like they're being taken advantage of, and they're developing their skills. And right now we're just kind of promoting through social media and outreach programs, but eventually we'd love to like finance the films of these like disabled creators. Um, but that's kind of, I guess, to answer the other part of the question, like why I'm passionate about both, is because I want to, on one hand, like act in service to the community, the disability community, which I'm doing right now through ABA, but this would be kind of like the career, the dream, or kind of a
Mm.
huge goal for me, is to have this production company take off, so I can kind of like carve out my own niche, I guess you could say, and meld my or excuse me, mesh my passion for film and the disability community together, to create an environment that's like both where people can carry out their passions and in film, and then also hopefully it's therapeutic for them as well. And again, it might not be the traditional like ABA approach, but if it's able to, they're able to learn from it and grow from it, much like I'm trying to do myself, through everyday, every day-to-day stuff. I think that would be an accomplishment, and I think I know we're gonna get there, or I'll get there. It just might be take some time, but yeah, I'm very passionate about both of them.
And did you mention you were working on a documentary earlier?
Yeah. So I'm actually right now working on a documentary about a theater in Carlsbad, California, that employs neurodivergent actors who have performed in a theatrical adaptation of the children's book Stella Luna. And they actually went on tour to 10 different schools around the San Diego area and performed in front of different elementary school children. And it was an amazing thing to witness. And, whereas probably like 50 years ago, a lot of these actors would have been in like institution or just confined to like a day program. They're getting paid, they're finding purpose, they're finding belonging, mingling with each other. I mean, it kind of is representative of like what I want, to do with my Blue Star Productions, is like create a safe space where all these creators who are, passionate about the same thing, or, just want to come together and just be human, like, and find a purpose. And that's what these actors did through their theatrical performances. They found a purpose, they found belonging, they found a sense of independence. And it was so cool to see just like the expressions of joy that were on their face as they're performing. And even aside from like being behind the camera, just like getting to know them, getting to build a rapport with them, and realizing that much like the big theme of the film is like that we're not all that different, and these actors just have their own set of needs and preferences that might be a little different, or might be a little more than the rest, neurotypical people, but doesn't make them any lesser human beings. And they're some of the most loyal people that I've come to know, and are so passionate about acting and about um, being on stage. And they were stoked that we had the cameras there documenting it, and we're just so open um, to sharing their experiences. So it's super grateful. I mean, it brings me just a smile to talk about it, because I'm so excited for it to be completed and to get these actors the recognition they deserve. So yeah.
That is such a cool project. I love that.
Thank you.
I hope it comes to life for you, that your dream comes true. You should listen to one of the guests we had a few weeks ago. His name is Scott, and he's a filmmaker in Hollywood who has autism. Scott Steindorf is his name. I think you would really like his episode. I guess where can people find you online? I know you mentioned earlier that you are on social media, but is that like private, or do you have like a page where you talk about autism? Just tell people where they can find you, or not.
Yeah, no, I have my film account is at Blue Star Productions, BLU Star Productions, on Instagram. And we have our website, same spelling, bluestarproductions.com. Or if you just want to chat with me individually outside of filmmaking about AVA, or about anything in general, just shoot the shit. I have my own Instagram, alex.astrella, Astrella. And yeah, again, I don't have a, like what you mentioned, I don't really have a platform yet where I talk about. I would love to start my own podcast like at some point soon, about like talking to other creators who are neurodivergent, or any individuals who are neurodivergent. But since I'm so, again, it's been like a little over a month that I've been like public about it, so I'm still it's very exciting, but I'm still kind of figuring out like what I want to use my voice for. And but it's an exciting opportunity for me.
Well, for what it's worth, as someone who's, I guess, an influencer with a big platform on social media, I think your story is really incredible. And you have it all. I mean, you were diagnosed as a child, so you had that entire experience of going through therapy, which a lot of us who were diagnosed as adults, we don't have. And now you're in ABA as an adult, and then you have that side project with the filmmaking and hiring neurodivergent people, which I think is also great. So I mean, if I can tell you anything, is go for it. And I think you'd be surprised by the response.
Thank you. Thank you. That yeah, I know. It's a determination. I just wake up I wake up every day super fortunate for where I'm at, and I'm just trying to, I know it's cliche nowadays, but just manifest that energy towards like achieving my goals, and always climbing the mountain, and I think, hopefully I'll get there soon enough, but thank you.
Yeah, of course. So to wrap this up, we like to ask our guests some quick fire questions.
Yeah,
So you
let's do
just
it.
tell me the first thing that comes to your mind. What's
You want me to do it, Eileen, or you got it?
I got it.
She's like, why do you change things on me? It's been the same forever.
Yeah. So, who is your favorite filmmaker?
Oh, favorite filmmaker. Probably all-time Francis Ford Coppola. The Godfather is my favorite film. I love Apocalypse Now. Yeah, I think he's kind of in a league of his own.
Who's your favorite autism representation in a TV show or in a movie?
Oh, favorite That's interesting. I don't know if I know. It's not, I mean, I don't honestly can't think of one that comes to mind about autism representation. Like, I know there's The Good Doctor, and I've watched that, and I'm not a really big fan of that, but I
Mm.
will say, I Breaking Bad is one of my favorite shows, and it's not autism, but I believe Walter's son has CP, and I think that was a really cool representation of an actor with a disability being an amazing actor and having the opportunity to be in that role. So that'd be my answer for that. Yeah.
Who's your favorite actor?
Oh, favorite actor. Um, Probably. I mean, I'm not so much a fan of his stuff in real, like as a person. I don't know if I would like get along with him, but I think Daniel Day-Lewis, every time he's in a role, just like I'm just blown away. In Lincoln and in Phantom Thread, among other films, like he just a stellar actor and really just immerses you in every role he's in. So, yeah.
Favorite food?
Oh, Italian for sure. My family's from Sicily. I could eat pasta every day of the week.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
Favorite color?
Green. Green has been my favorite color for a while.
Nice. And that was it for us. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It was a blast talking with you.
Yeah, no, I'm grateful again, fortunate to have the opportunity. And so yeah, thank you, Eileen and Andrew. I've really enjoyed coming on and talking with you guys.
Yeah, no, thank you for coming on. Really enjoyed having you.